All right, Jim, running the Senior Bowl. Boy, I bet you a lot of teams are pretty happy that they invested heavily in coming down to see you this year.
Yeah, and just with everything we're going through, I think our players will benefit this year. I think the draft process has become like this big glamorous thing, but when you get down to it, it's just human nature. And these GMs, they want familiarity with these players, and the scouting staffs want to just be familiar and be around these guys. And there's really, even in other years, there's no real time like the week in the Senior Bowl to be around these guys. More of a relaxed setting than you have at the combine. The guys with the clubs have more time on their hands. Our players have a little more time on their hands than they do in Indy. So yeah, they'll benefit this year. It's unfortunate what this thing's doing to a lot of kids in this draft, but our players should be in good shape.
When you look at a guy like Brandon Beane that's running the Bills draft, when we've talked to him about the way he likes to scout players, he loves the hands-on approach. He tells us about during the season when on a weekend he'll fly somewhere before a Bills game. He loves to get down on the field, loves to see him, when he can. He'll say figures a way to get down on the field, like to see him warm up. What value is that from a guy who's a scout, from a guy who knows that's the way to evaluate players? What value do you see when the guy making the call is so hands-on with looking at the players?
I think it's the only way to do it. I do. I think, and Brandon's done a great job. I think I saw Brandon at 3 or 4 games this year. He was at LSU, Alabama. I think I saw him at South Carolina, Alabama. So I saw him out a few times this year, and I agree. It's the only way to do it. You can't just sit in your office and be an office scout. You got to get on the road and see these guys. And we're talking about Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle from South Carolina, earlier today on ESPN. And really the value for Javon, he's made this really nice rise through the process, and it's because it gave guys like Brandon and some of the head coaches and these decision makers an opportunity to stand 10 feet from this guy and feel that explosion. It's one thing to see it on tape, but to feel that player's physicality when you're standing 10 feet from him, it really helps in the evaluation process. You can really get a better understanding of these players and off the field as well. If Brandon's out going to games, he's talking to coaches on the sideline and hearing it firsthand rather than, maybe not from someone on his staff. And we're all human. Sometimes when you take it in yourself, it means a little more. But no, they're doing it the right way up there. Brandon's put a great staff together, and Bills fans should be excited about where that team's headed.
All right, you started mentioning a defensive lineman. Edge rush seems to be a spot that the Bills are going to look. I mean, they've got a pretty talented defensive line, but on the outside, it's guys who've been around the league a little bit. You mentioned some, I was thinking of a guy like Darrell Taylor out of Tennessee, and I don't know what the Bills' thoughts would be, but I know he was a senior. I think he was a Senior Bowl guy with you. Tell us a little bit about a guy like that and how he may fit in the NFL game.
Yeah, I know the Bills don't have a first-round pick this year, but they're really kind of in the sweet spot for the draft. Talking to more guys around the league the last couple of days, a lot of teams are trying to get out of the first and accumulate more picks in the second and third, because that's where they feel like the meat of this draft is, and that's where you can get the same player in the 40s and 50s than you maybe could in the 20s. So there's going to be a lot of guys. Bradley and I from Utah had a big week down here, but you asked about Darrell Taylor. He did. He came to Mobile. We were really excited to get him here. And then we flagged him. Our medical people found a crack in his tibia that he claimed he played with the entire year. And the guy had 8.5 sacks in the SEC with a cracked tibia. So we held him out. He had to have surgery after that. But that's where you're looking for value. Some of these guys that get hurt and are having, some postseason cleanup surgeries that aren't really, big time injuries, but they needed to get attended to, before this process started, they lose a little steam. You don't hear him talked about as much through the process. So Darrell Taylor's a guy that, had he gone through the process, come to Mobile, and at Brandon Beane been able to see him in one-on-one drills, maybe you're talking about him at the end of the first round or early in the second round. He's probably going to go later than that now. So that would be a great value. The guy's had 16.5 sacks in the SEC the last 2 years. He's big, strong. He might be the best looking edge guy in the class this year. He's an absolute Adonis. So that's definitely a direction I could see them going.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are in such a different position than they were a couple of years ago, where they had so many needs. Now, every team has needs, but they've accumulated a pretty good, especially that, they made so many changes on offense a year ago, and they beefed up the defense, and maybe they can take some shots there. The other position really of need right now for them would be running back. Like they love Devin Singletary, and he was
Yeah.
really good for them last year. But outside of that, right now, I mean, you've got T.J. Yeldon, who was barely on the field last year, and Christian Wade, who's an English rugby player who's never played in the NFL. If they're looking, if Bills fans want to keep their eye on running backs, second, third, fourth, fifth round, who's a guy you think could be a good fit in Buffalo?
Yeah, that's a good question. In this year's group, I don't think that run is going to happen till late. We might get out of the first round without seeing one. DeAndre Swift from Georgia has a chance. My favorite guy is Clyde Edwards-Helaire at LSU. I think he might have a chance. Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin, J.K. Dobbins, Ohio State, but they probably won't be in that mix. You know, they do like Devin Singletary quite a bit, from what I understand. So they're going to be more, maybe third, fourth round. And a guy that really impressed at the Senior Bowl and is a hot guy right now in the league is Joshua Kelly from UCLA. He's got a great story. So he goes to UC Davis, plays there 2 years, and kind of bets on himself and transfers to UCLA and walks on the team and earns a scholarship and becomes a 1,000-yard runner. And what scouts love about him, he plays on special teams. He's a really good special teams player. He's got really good burst. And the last couple of years of me working at the Senior Bowl, there's been a handful of guys that, we invite them here because we like them. I mean, we like them enough to invite them and we think they're draftable players. But then they get here and they're better than I thought they were. I'm like, wow, this guy's got more to him. And Joshua Kelly was that guy. So, they lined him up at receiver during the Senior Bowl week, and he was running some receiver routes and doing a really nice job catching the ball. So it was like a complimentary back. To Singletary, he gives you a little bigger guy. He gives you a guy that can play on fourth down. He can play on third down. And if he does get up there, he's going to be your favorite guy in the locker room. He has got such a charisma about him that he would be a great pick for a team like Buffalo.
Yeah, and they love that fit, right? He's made a big point of that, both Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, about fit in the room and how it works. A lot of these polls are coming out, and I know you work for the Patriots. So a lot of these polls are coming out, making the Bills the team to beat in the AFC East. And Brandon Beane, when he was with us, he was like, they're the team to beat. We haven't beaten them on the field. We have to prove it. Because of the quarterback, obviously. But I think you may upset some Bills fans with your analysis of how good of a player Jarrett Stidham could be playing for the Patriots if he's their starter. If I've heard that correctly, the way you feel about this young guy and what potential he has.
Yeah, he's not a fourth-round pick. He was a fourth-round pick, but he's not your typical fourth-round pick. Most of the time when you're picking quarterbacks in the fourth round, you really see them with a backup ceiling. If they become a good number two for you, you feel good about that pick. Why Jarrett slid to the fourth, I still don't know. I really thought going into his junior year there at Auburn, he had a chance to go late in the first, but he's a really natural thrower. It's effortless. He's accurate to all levels of the field. He's really smart. He's really mature. I know that doesn't help Bills fans because if Bill Belichick stole a good quarterback in the fourth round, I mean, that'd be terrible. But I do think Jarrett's got the chance to be the future there. When I was there, we drafted Brian Hoyer. We brought in Matt Castle. They've had Jacoby Brissett since then, Jimmy Garoppolo. I've scouted all those guys. I think that Jarrett Stidham's got more talent than all four of them. But it's still got to come together. He's still got to get in the field and prove it. Those guys have all been starters at some level or another in the league. Yeah, I think Jarrett can be better, but now he's got to prove it. But I do think the AFC East is totally wide open. I think the Bills are a much, much better team. I think Miami showed late in the year that they're going to be a better team. So I'm excited about what that division is going to look like this year.
Can you let everybody know what you're going to be doing? I know ESPN Radio. I've seen you a ton on ESPN TV. Let everybody know what you're going to be doing come these next few days when the draft comes up Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of stuff on the NFL Live show during the day and the afternoons, and then some Sports Center hits at night or in the mornings. I know they like to keep Mel and Todd fresh during draft weekend, so I'll probably be doing the 6 a.m. Sports Center duties and letting those guys sleep in a little bit. And then I'll be doing day 3 of the draft on ESPN Radio, which is fun for me because day 3 is my favorite day. That's kind of the scouts day. That's when you can, really build your team. That's when you build kind of the meat and potatoes of your football team. So I love day 3. I'm excited about that, but that'll be on the radio.
And you keep doing this, and you're going to eventually have like Caliendo doing an impression of you, right? He's already got Todd and Mel. So maybe he'll be doing one of you someday.
God, I hope not.
Jim, thanks very much. We appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to watching you and getting your analysis and following you on Twitter and seeing what's going on both for the Bills and for everybody in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Enjoy the draft.